Are you in the market for some new studio monitors? In this video, I'm going to do a comparison between the Kali Audio LP8s and the Kali Audio LP6s. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. If you're someone who's looking to take their studio monitor game to the next level, if maybe you're entry level, now you want to bump it up a little bit, two great options are both from Kali Audio, one of them being the LP8s, one of them being the LP6s. In this video, I'm going to go over my personal experiences with both of them and which one I would go with, or maybe which one's best for you. And before we get to the comparison, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. Also, if you want to help the channel grow, down below there are links to the gear I use in my studio, links to my music, and things such as that. Alright, the LP8s and the LP6s. First thing is first, the LP8s come with a 8-inch woofer and the LP6s come with a 6-inch woofer. The price difference is a difference of $50 per studio monitor, so if you're looking all in, the LP8s will be approximately $500 and the LP6s would be about $400. These studio monitors visually are very, very similar other than the 8-inch woofer versus the 6-inch woofer. For example, on the back, they have dip switches that are identical on both. They have descriptions of how to set them up depending on where you're positioning your studio monitors in your room. Which I've said before in other videos, I think this is a great feature because maybe if you're someone who doesn't know how to properly set up your studio monitors, the dip switches are a great way to get you kind of in the realm or the arena where you need to start. On the back of these studio monitors, you will also find the power switch and also just an overall volume knob. All right, so what have I used these two sets of studio monitors for? Well, the LP6s I used for a very long time on my video editing rig. And they came in so incredibly handy because the type of video I was doing a fair amount of audio mixing inside of Adobe Premiere. So I didn't want to mix on some cheap pair of just computer speakers. I wanted to really hear what was going on. And these studio monitors were great for that. I also use them in music production as well. So I'd use them on mixing projects and playback and just kind of an A/B between my Focal Alpha 65s and the Kali Audio LP6s. So the Kali Audio LP6s really were a workhorse for me and still are to a degree. I've used them kind of across the gamut and they have been absolutely fantastic. 100% would recommend them. So the LP8s. These I got a few months ago from Kali Audio, and these ones I've had less time with, but I feel like my knowledge of them compared to the LP6s has been pretty crystallized. So the main thing I've used the LP8s for was playback, for just listening to music around the house, downstairs in my studio, just playback, listening to Spotify. The other thing I used them for was checking mixes in Cubase. So I would send a mix over to my laptop, hook them up to the LP8s, and kind of do an A/B reference, similar to what I was doing with the LP6s. The one thing that's different about the way I had them set up in my studio is the LP6s were kind of in the sweet spot next to my Focal Alpha 65s. The LP8s I had kind of set up in a different spot in my studio, so they probably weren't performing their best with how I had them set up. But as soon as I plugged them in, turned them on, and started listening to music, I was so surprised with how great they sounded. The LP8s sounded so big, and they had just a nice range of everything from some nice high-end clarity all the way down to some really nice subsonic lows, which I truly didn't expect. I previously mixed on some M-Audio BX8As, and those were 8-inch woofers, and they didn't really have a lot of low end. I bought them when I was probably 18 years old, thinking, great, I don't need a sub for my apartment, these will do the trick. They didn't. So I've always kind of had this thought of, well, maybe, an 8-inch woofer doesn't necessarily always give you the low end. A lot more goes into that. But they sounded fantastic, and you don't need a sub with the LP8s at all, in my opinion. Another thing nice about the LP8s is other mid-range studio monitors I've listened to with 8-inch woofers, you kind of start to hear a little bit of a scoop with the mids. And with the LP8s, I didn't notice any type of scoop. It was just flat across the board. And it's the same thing with the LP6s, flat across the board, but to me, the LP8s just sounded bigger and had more low end, which really, if you look at them, you would imagine that is the way it would play out. And that is exactly how it played out. The bigger speaker sounded bigger and had more low end than the smaller speaker. So who would I recommend these studio monitors for? First of all, I would recommend both sets of studio monitors, the LP6s and the LP8s. But I think depending on who you are, I'd recommend a different set. If you're someone who maybe has a room at home with your parents or roommates, you're sharing a space in an apartment or a house, the LP6s might be the way to go. Smaller footprint gives you all the sound you need. They're cheaper, they're $100 cheaper for a pair. They do provide some low end that can definitely help you mix, depending on your genre. You can definitely mix some things that are real low end heavy. Now, maybe if you're someone who has a little more room and you can actually, you know, maybe push the studio monitors a little bit harder, not necessarily worried about bothering neighbors or roommates or anything like that, I would say look at the LP8s. I truly feel you wouldn't need a sub with them at all. They should provide enough low end that you would ever need unless you're moving into a much, much larger room. Or the LP8s might be great if you're planning on moving to a bigger room, having more flexibility in the future, and you want something that's gonna last you for the next 5, 10 years or so. Then the LP8s might be the studio monitor for you. And of course, the price comes into play. The LP8s are $100 more for a set versus the LP6s. So $400 versus $500. If that makes a difference, then the LP6s might be for you. I do not think you'll be disappointed at all. But for me, let's say I have no studio monitors or anything like that, and I had to pick between the LP8 and the LP6, I myself would go with the LP8. I feel they sound $100, they sound more than $100 better than the LP6s, if that makes any sense. If the LP6s, you told me they were $400 for a pair, and I had no idea what the LP8s cost, I would say they were probably $650 a pair, maybe $700. That's, to me, how much bigger and better they sounded in my room versus the LP6. But again, like I said, the LP6s are great. If that's the choice you go for, you will not be disappointed. They're great. But for me, I would probably pick the LP8s because of all the things I listed. So I hope this video helped. If you're debating between the two, there are links down below to them. If you purchase them through those links, that helps support the channel and I greatly appreciate it. If you have any questions, please comment down below. I'll do my best to get back to you and answer your question. And until next time, thanks for watching and see you later.